All this commotion awakened Margaya himself. He cried, "Who is there? Who is there?"
Someone was moving about. Someone made a noise. The uproar increased.
"Where are the matches?" Margaya demanded suddenly and cursed in the dark. "Who asked you to blow out the light?"
His wife said. He sprang up and ran towards the backyard, thinking that the intruder must have run in that direction. The little boy cried, "Oh, father, father, don't go. Don't go."
His mother clutched him to her bosom. He struggled and wildly kicked for no reason whatever. The people of the next house woke up and muttered, "Something always goes wrong in that house."
Even at midnight one has no peace, if they are in the neighborhood. Margaya was sitting before his small box, examining the accounts written in his red book. His son came up to sit on his lap.
Margaya said, "Go and play, don't disturb me now," and tried to keep him off. "This is my play, I won't go," said the child, pushing towards him again resolutely and climbing on his lap. Margaya had to peep over his head in order to look at the register before him. Balu's hair constantly tickled his nostrils and he felt irritated.
He cried, "Balu, won't you leave me alone? I will buy you a nice." "What?" asked the child.
"A nice little elephant." "All right, buy it now, come on." No, not now. "I'm working now," he said, pointing at the small register.
Balu shot out his little leg and kicked away the register petulantly, and in the process the ink well upset beside it and emptied on the page. Then the child stamped his heel on the ink and it splashed over Margaya's face and spoiled the entire book. Margaya felt maddened at the sight of it.
He simply gripped the boy by his shoulder, lifted him as he would lift an unwanted cat, and almost fling him into a corner. Needless to say, it made the child cry so loudly that his mother came running out of the kitchen, her eyes streaming with tears owing to the smoke there. "What has happened?"
"What has happened?" she cried, rushing towards the child, who, undaunted, was again making a dash for his father as he stooped over the wreckage trying to retrieve his damaged account book. "Look what he has done," he cried excitedly.
"This minky. You are a monkey," cried the boy, hugging his father's knee as he was blotting the spilled ink. "If you don't leave me, I'll," he was too angry.
"I'll give you over to the temple priest. He'll flay your skin." "He will give me plantains," corrected the boy. He turned aside and suddenly pounced on the book, grabbed it and dashed off.
His father ran after him with war cries. The boy dodged him here and there, going into this corner and darting into that. His tears had by now dried, he was enjoying the chase, and with hysterical laughter he was running hither and thither clutching the precious red notebook in his hand.
It was a small space within which he ran, but somehow Margaya was unable to seize him. Margaya panted with the effort. He cried, "If you don't stop, I'll flay you."
"What is the matter with you? What has come over you?" asked the wife.
"I'm all right," Margaya replied proudly. "You'll see what I'll do to that little monkey, that devil you have begotten." His wife gave some appropriate reply, and tried to help in the chase.
She pretended to look away and suddenly darted across to seize the boy. He was too swift even for her calculations. She only collided against her husband, which irritated him more, and it allowed the child to dash into the street with his prize, with his father at his heels.
He cried impatiently to his wife, "Get out of the way, you," at which she turned and went back to the kitchen murmuring, "What do I care? I only let the rice overboil watching this tomfoolery." The boy dashed down the front steps, with his father following him.
Margaya was blind to all his surroundings. All he could see was the little boy with his curly hair, and the small red-bound book which was in his hand. Some passers-by in Vinayak Mudali Street stopped to watch the scene. Margaya cried shamelessly, "Hold him!
Hold him!" At which they tried to encircle the boy. It was evident that by now he had become completely intoxicated with the chase.
Presently he found that he was being outnumbered and cornered. As a circle of hunters hemmed in, he did an entirely unexpected thing. He turned back as if coming into his father's arms, and as he was just about to grasp him, darted sideways to the edge of the gutter and flung the red book into it. The gutter ran in front of the houses. Roaring waters went down the drain God knew where.
It was well known that any object that fell into it was lost forever. It sank and went out of sight, sank deeper and deeper into a black mass, and was hopelessly gone. The gutter was wide as a channel. Once in a while, especially before the elections, the municipal officials came down and walked along the edge, peering into its dark current and saying something among themselves as to its being a problem and so on.
But there they left it until the next election. It was a stock cynicism for people to say when they saw anyone inspecting the drains, they are only looking for the election votes there. At other times the gutter continued its existence unhampered, providing the cloud of mosquitoes and the stench that characterized existence in Vinayak Mudali Street.
Presently a big crowd stood on the edge of the drain looking at its inky, swirling waters. People sympathized with Margaya. Wild, inaccurate reports of what had fallen into it were circulated.
Margaya heard people tell each other, a box was dropped into it. That child threw away a gold chain into it. Everyone looked at Balu with interest.
He seemed to have become a hero for the moment. He felt abashed at this prominence and hung his head. The sun was shining on them fiercely, though it was just 9:30 in the morning.
Margaya looked red with anger and exertion. His son's face was also flushed. The little boy crossed his arms behind him and stood on the edge of the gutter watching it with fascination.
There was no trace of the book left anywhere. Margaya, as blood boiled as he watched the unconcern of the boy, who, true to the type in that street, wore only a shirt which covered only the upper half of his body. Two peddlers carrying green vegetables, a cyclist who jumped off on seeing the crowd, a few school children, a curd seller, and a few others formed the group which now watched the gutter with varying comments passing between them.
A man was saying, some people are so fond that they give their children everything they ask for. On hearing this, Margaya felt so enraged that he lifted the edge of the shirt the little boy was wearing and slapped him fiercely across his uncovered seat. The boy cried aloud, "Oh," and turned round on his father.
It started a fresh scene. Someone dragged away the child crying, "Save the child from this ruffian." Another said, he would have pushed the child into the gutter.
A woman with a basket came forward to ask, "Are you a heartless demon? How can you beat such a small child?" She flung down her basket and picked up the child on her arm.
Balu copiously sobbed on her shoulder. Another woman tried to take him from her, commenting, "Only those who bear the child for 10 months in the womb know how precious it is. Men are always like this."
Someone objected to this statement. It turned out to be the man holding the cycle, who retorted with great warmth, "Boys must be chastised. Otherwise, do you want them to grow up into devils?" Margaya looked at him gratefully. Here at last was a friend in this absolutely hostile world.
He swept his arms to address all the women and the gathering. "It's all very well for you to talk. But he has thrown in there an important account book. What am I to do without it?"
How can a baby know anything about account books and such things? God gives children to those who don't deserve them. You should not have kept it within his reach.
You must always be prepared for such things where there are children. A washerwoman, who had come forward, said, "You were childless for 12 years, and prayed to all the gods and went to Tirupati. Was it only for this? What have I done?"
Margaya asked pathetically. He was beginning to feel very foolish. Society was pressing in upon him from all sides, the latest in the shape of this woman who had on her back a bundle of unwashed linen.
Vegetable sellers, oilmongers, passers-by, cartmen, students, everyone seemed to have a right to talk to him as they pleased. Society seemed to overwhelm him on all sides. The lone cyclist was hardly an adequate support on which to lean.
Margaya turned and looked for him. He too was gone. He saw his son clinging fast to the waist of the cucumber seller, sobbing and gaining more sympathizers.
Margaya knew that the little boy would not let his sympathizers go until they took him to the shop across the road and bought him peppermints. The crowd turned away and was now following Balu, and Margaya felt relieved that they were leaving him alone. He broke a twig off an avenue tree, and vaguely poked it into the gutter and ran the stick from end to end.
He only succeeded in raising a stench. A schoolmaster who passed that way advised, "Call a scavenger and ask him to look for it. He'll have the proper thing with him for poking here."
"Don't try to do everything yourself." Margaya obediently dropped the stick into the drain, reflecting, "No one will let me do what I like." He turned to go back into his house. He climbed his steps with bowed head, because his brother's entire family was ranged along the wall on the other side.
He quickly passed in. When he was gone, they commented, Something is always agitating that household and creating a row. Margaya went straight into the kitchen, where his wife was cooking, ignorant of all that had happened, and told her, "The folk in the next house seem to have no better business than to hang about to see what is going on here. Do they ever find the time to cook, eat or sleep?"
This was a routine question needing no reply from his wife. She merely asked, "Where is the child?" "Probably rolling in the gutter," he answered wearily.
"What has come over you?" she asked. "You don't seem to be in your senses since last night."
"I'm not. And if you try to imply that I have been drinking or spending the night in a brothel, I leave you free to think so." The loss of the little book produced endless complications for Margaya.
He could hardly transact any business without it. He had to conceal the loss from his customers, who he feared might take advantage of it. He had to keep out of the tree shade, remain standing or moving about, and give out figures from his head. It was almost irksome. It was an important day. He had to collect money from 3 or 4 men to whom he had advanced cash.
"Where is the book, master?" asked Kali, one of his old customers. Margaya said, "I'm rebinding it. You know it must look tidy."
"But it is really not necessary for me. I have everything I want here," he added, tapping his forehead. Kali had not been here for some weeks now and so looked with suspicion at this man standing beyond the gate, without his box, without his book.
Perhaps, thought Margaya, Amidas has been speaking to him. Kali was like a tiger which suddenly meets the ringmaster, without the ring, or the whip in his hand. "Why are you not in your place?"
he asked. "Oh, I'm tired of sitting and sitting. Some sort of lumbago here," Margaya said.
He sat down on the short compound wall. A country cart passed along, and it threw up dust. Margaya sneezed.
"You see, you should not sit there," moralized the other. "I should not. That's why I'm looking for an office hereabouts with chairs and tables. When eminent people like you arrive, you will be seated in chairs," he said.
"I must also look to your convenience, don't you see?" "Of course," said the other. "But that banyan shade was quite good, sir."
"So much fresh air. I always like it." "I don't," replied Margaya.
"It's all very well for a man like you, who comes out to lounge and have a nap in the afternoon. But for a businessman it is not good. The uproar those birds make."
"I can hardly hear my own voice. And then their droppings. And those ants down below."
"I used to suffer agony when I was sitting there." "Where is your box, sir?" asked Kali, noticing its absence. "Sent it for repainting. It's a lucky box, my dear fellow."
"I don't like to throw it away. It's not looking quite tidy. I've sent it for painting. I have it more as a keepsake."
"Yes, whatever article has grown up with us must be kept all our life. In our village there was a fellow who had a hoe with a broken handle." "I know all that," Margaya cut in, snubbing him just for the sake of effect.
"When he changed the handle, his harvest suffered, didn't it?" "How do you know, sir?" asked Kali, overawed. "I know everything that goes on in people's minds, otherwise, I should not have taken to this banking business. Now I know what is going on in your mind."
"You have got in your purse, which you have tucked at the waist, money drawn from the bank." No, sir," he protested. "Is it so easy to get money out of them?"
"Listen. Your loan application was considered and passed on Monday last. You must have in your purse now 279 rupees and 4 annas, that is, you have given 8 annas to the clerk, and 4 annas as a tip to Arul Das."
"Is it, or is it not a fact?" He cast a searching look at Kali, who had wrapped himself in a large sheet. There were 100 corners over his person where he might tuck a whole treasure.
Kali met his gaze, and turned to go. It was the dull hour of the afternoon when his other clients had gone into the bank or were dozing in the shade.